I think I'm back. I'm back. Okay. I guess I'm not gonna be recording for the long form videos, but that's fine. I'm just gonna do them in a transition footage style. Fuck it. I'm not gonna overextend myself anymore. So I'm back. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Let me play this. Check. Okay.
Round of powers was to kill everyone in his village. Yes, he is just that evil. Okay, so next he needed to work with Kil'jaeden in order to unite the orcs and kill the Draenei. And in order to do so, first, he'd have to throw the world in peril. The warlock traveled to the throne of elements and corrupted the spirits of Draenor and threw them into disarray.
This wretched realm will be brought to its knees.
As the seasons passed, the entire world was plagued with natural disasters and disease. Arid droughts would suck the life out of the earth, only to be met with torrents of flash floods months later. And entire swaths of jungle were covered in snow. The wretched disease known as redpox plagued orcish settlements, and hundreds died in a matter of weeks. The symptoms of this disease was swelling red pustules growing on your body and vomiting blood. Quite frankly, the inhabitants of Draenor were straight up just not having a good time right now.
No.
Next on Gul'dan's list of atrocities was to ally with an orc that could help lead and inspire the other orcs to rally against the Draenei. Gul'dan set out for the Shadowmoon clan, the shamanistic clan that
Here's the problem that we have. The electricity went out in the city, so I'm gonna try to fix it before continuing on.
a lot of other clans respected. Gul'dan appeared at the gates of their village, telling sob stories about how the ogres, oh my gosh, they just killed everyone in my clan. It was horrible. Oh my god, please help me. The orcs felt sympathy for the lone refugee and adopted him into the clan. Over time, Gul'dan would grow close to the chieftain Ner'zhul. Together, they shared their woes of the friends and family they had lost, and Ner'zhul confessed the grief in his heart he had for his mate, Rul Khan, who he had lost years ago. Gul'dan preyed on the chieftain's inner turmoil and won his trust and friendship. Why would you trust some random orc with spikes growing out of his back? I don't know, but I guess Ner'zhul was just a very vulnerable dude.
The Legion's grasp extends beyond this mortal coil. Your mind, so feeble.
Through Gul'dan, Kil'jaeden could warp and bend Ner'zhul's inner thoughts, which is something that would prove to be incredibly useful later in our story. The manipulation was yet another victory leading up to their master plan, but Gul'dan's job was not done just yet.
Fire, now!
Meanwhile, the Draenei had their own problems they were dealing with. In the lands of Talador, the Draenei had been dealing with a small clan of orcs that had been harassing them ever since the war they had with the ogres. This small group of orcs were called the Bladewind clan, who had been a thorn in their side for years at this point. They'd raid Draenei caravans and take captives, and generally just be really annoying.
We will fight another day!
But as Draenor's climate was thrown into peril, the Bladewind clan was hit the hardest. The combination of diminishing resources and the infectious disease of redpox dealt a massive blow to their population. The Bladewind were a frustrated, doomed, and desperate people. And that made them vulnerable.
Prepare yourself. Our enemy's suffering shall soon commence.
Gul'dan appeared before the Bladewind clan, disguising himself as a Shadowmoon clan representative. He told the orcs that the world's elemental woes and redpox was actually the Draenei's doing, and the only way to restore balance was to spill their blood.
Our enemy thinks us conquered. Reveal their error.
The Bladewind were pretty much doomed at this point, so they really had nothing else to lose, and accepted Gul'dan's word as truth.
When we arrived here, I lost many jewels that had been in my family for generations. If you could get your hands on my family jewels, I would be deeply appreciative.
Help! Anybody!
The way he does his videos is kind of crazy, but I love it. Huh?
It was an ambush.
Exarchakama, these attacks are just the beginning.
The Bladewind's heightened aggression did not go unnoticed by the Draenei. Clearly, something was going on here, and the Exarchs needed to take action.
I am required to provide a greeting. Hello.
The Council of Exarchs met with Prophet Velen to discuss their next steps in their conflict with the Bladewind. Exarch Niele and the Rangari went on scouting missions to observe the Savage Clan, and what they found was truly horrifying. The Bladewind had resorted to performing sacrificial rituals on the kidnapped Draenei in hopes of appeasing the world's elements. The rituals were graphic, savage, but ultimately futile.
It is far worse than I feared. Do we have the strength to face such a foe?
Velen reflected on the visions he had. Perhaps the Bladewind's actions were motivated by the Legion, but there was no way of proving that. Besides, the visions Velen had of the Legion were not the undeniable truth. Like, he also had a vision where his old friend Archimon was outside and was all like,
Dance with us, Velen. Feel the gyrations of the music flow through your body. I'm coming towards you. Ooh, come on, let's dance.
yeah, his visions could get kind of weird. Anyways, Velen's solution to the ordeal was to remain a man of peace, and he simply decided to bolster the defenses of Draenei settlements because it would be the most passive way to defeat the Bladewind threat.
With respect, I disagree. We must not underestimate them.
But not all agreed with Velen's ideals. Vindicator Murad, a paladin who served under Exarch Akama, refused to stand idle while he still had a chance to save his sister, Loran, who was kidnapped by the orcs. Reluctantly, Velen and the other Exarchs gave in to the Vindicator's plea, and an offensive strike force of Rengari and Vindicators were dispatched to the Bladewind village.
Oh! Is it working? It's working! Okay.
My favorite
Okay.
kind of music. Black rock and roll, of course.
No.
I will deal with the beasts myself.
I will destroy you!
Your blood will spill.
Charge!
Taste your own death.
This is the end of your race, Rabbi!
Light, grant me your vengeance.
Get away!
Such delusion.
While Gul'dan pulled the strings of his puppets, his master did the same, and Kil'jaeden the Deceiver appeared before the chieftain Ner'zhul to sway his opinion of the Draenei.
Yo, what's going on? It's me, your dead wife, Rolkan. Anyways, you know, Ner'zhul, I never told you this, but, when I was alive, there was nothing more I hated than Draenei. Man, I just hate those dudes. They're the reason for all of this climate change and disease, and they're gonna kill you all, and you're gonna need to make a giant army. Just unite all of the clans that kill them in order to save Draenor. Look, it's very important. Now, I gotta go. I'm your wife, so, hugs and kisses and all that, and I'll see you
It's
later.
true. This happened.
The tides of war encroach. Are you ready to meet them?
With every single Bladewind clan member murdered, only Gul'dan's retelling of the events would be known to the other orcs.
Oh.
The manipulative warlock told the Shadowmoon clan that the Draenei, they just massacred the Bladewind clan totally unprovoked, and their bloodthirsty armies would hunt down the rest of the
Electricity is
orcish
back.
clans next.
No for the
Ner'zhul
sewage.
was really in no position to refuse the advice from the spirits, and if Gul'dan spoke the truth, maybe the Bladewind's fall was only a precursor for the devastation to come. Actions to unite the clans needed to be made. Ner'zhul sent urgent summons for the rest of the clans to meet at Oshagun. Over a number of weeks, the various clans rallied together at Oshagun. Ner'zhul put forward the claims that the spirits told him that the orcs' very existence was in peril. Their only chance of survival was to unite under one banner and drive back this alien threat. The clans took the rest of the evening to consider Ner'zhul's words. Some clans, like the Frostwolves, were very wary on declaring war. Their chieftain Duratan had only had peaceful interactions with the Draenei, and what exactly would be the gain of killing the orcs? You know, they had never really shown any real aggression until now. But then again, questioning the spirit's words on the matter would be ridiculous. Surely they know what they were talking about.
Woohoo!
Gul'dan was one of the first to openly support Ner'zhul's proposition to unite the clans. This would be a critical move in bringing the clans together because, you know, if some crippled old loser like Gul'dan wanted to fight and die for the clans, that meant any orc that didn't would be an honorless coward.
Thank you.
So at dawn, the orcs came together to come to a conclusion on the matter. Nearly every chieftain voted to unite the clans. The war horns were sounded, the orcs readied their blades, and from that day forward, they would be known as the Horde.
For the Horde. Jesus, I have no idea what this fucking update did to my power and to my sewage, but everything is fucking broken. Oh. How the fuck still no electricity? I don't want to fuck too much with this one. Oh, I was on the Alliance side for most of my life until I realized what a shit fuckery is the Alliance. And I'm actually on the Horde side because I feel like they really didn't do wrong here. Like...
This video is brought to you in collaboration.
Like, okay, we are talking about the events that led to the rise of the Horde, but basically they were the Horde, the way that we knew it in the First War, was risen and enraged by the forces of the Burning Legion, and they were tricked into being in that position. Like, you know, they were pretty noble, gentle, and spiritual beings before the Legion, but um but yeah, there I think that they have less to account for when it comes to their misdeeds than the Alliance. Like, Alliance straight up created concentration camps for them.
with wowhead.com.
Mana bomb?
Hello everyone! Last week we talked about the ordering of Draenor, the way in which life established on the planet, and how the different areas of the world came to be. This week we're going to talk about the differences when it comes to the whole Rise of the Horde and Invasion of Azeroth storyline, which begins with the Draenei, who were forced to make a crash landing on the planet. Velen and those that stood with him, they refused to join Sargeras and the Legion, and the Naru, Kur, Kaara and Dor, they aided the exiles as they move around in the dimensional fortress called the Genedar. Traveling like that, it cost immense amounts of energy which came from the Naru spirits, and over time they weakened. The time for running, it eventually came to an end, as they were forced to crash on a planet that the Draenei...
Oh, this is noble. Wait, what? So volume 1 was... And this? I am so confused. How... Okay, we were listening to this one. Can I have the second part of this fucking thing that we were watching? Yeah, but Terramore got destroyed because Jaina's father was an asshole. Like, if Jaina's father was able to see past his own racism, he wouldn't have died. He died because he was a racist. Oh. What was the mana bomb? Okay. I guess we're watching volume 2 from...
It's that the Draenei named
Noble.
Draenor, meaning exile's refuge. As they made the final journey, the Narukar, it lost its touch with the connection to the light, and the void began to consume it. As a final good act,
I didn't know
to
that
convince
story.
the Draenei to eject it from their ship before we start to fight his fellow Naru, but that was easier said than done though, since the void energy, it was coursing through its body and it started to lash out. Velen heroically stepped in, he used the light to shield the other two Naru, and they cast Kara away from the vessel. For centuries, Kara would drift in the skies above Shadowmoon Valley, but the battle had injured Velen and it sapped much of his strength. His ability to foresee future events, it became unreliable, and it would take him centuries to fully recover. The other two Naru, they were too weak to land on Draenor safely, and as the vessel crashed into the ground, it killed Dor and many of the Draenei on board. Kur, the last Naru standing, it told the survivors to quickly leave the ship, as it too was decaying and was turning towards the void. Velen and the Draenei, they were truly alone, and as far as they knew, this would be the last world that they would ever see. They built the city of Shefref upon the site where once Concordia was devoured. They built Karabor, which would become one of the most beautiful and holiest sites, and they built Akendun. This was to house the remains of Dor, who had been starting to draw in the souls of the dead Draenei, and the same had happened with Kur, only that one started to draw in the souls of departed orcs. Kaara became known as the Dark Star for the Shadowmoon clan, and they worshipped it, even trying to access its power. But touching those void energies, you might imagine that's not too good for your health, and it shattered their minds, and soon enough they decided that the Dark Star's power, that was not meant to be wielded by mortals. If anyone continued messing with it, they would be exiled out of their Shadowmoon Valley. So here we have the Draenei introduced to the world of Draenor, Draenor, and their coming had a massive impact on the world. The ogres were not happy with them building upon Concordia, but the Draenei, they repelled them easily enough, which showed the orcs that the Draenei, they were not as harmless as they had thought. Some decided to stay away from them, some attacked them if they'd go into their territory, and the Bladewing clan, they decided to attack the caravans and take some of the Draenei prisoners. It would have been easy for the Draenei to destroy this clan, but Velen forbade it, fearing that this would lead to an all-out war with the orcs, and instead decided to go for rescue missions and better protection for the caravans. All the Draenei wanted was to live in peace on Draenor and not cause any harm, something that was clearly shown when two young orcs, Orgrim and Duratan, they were saved from an attacking Heimal ogre by the Draenei. They were even invited to sit down with the...
I have to do a quick search, you guys. I have a massive problem. This problem is that any roads that I have made that were custom, that had electricity lines running through them, still have them, but the game doesn't see them. So I need to figure out how the fuck do I fix it, because my city is out of power. And if I have to redo all of the rows, I may as well start from scratch, because yeah. Let me just have a look. So Cities Skylines 2. My city lost electricity after update. Oh, existing setups experience bottlenecks, disconnections that result in outages. Okay. All right. My problem is with the roads that I did. Let me just assign a key to this. If it's just a matter of replacing the road so that the calculation updates itself. Fuck. Fuck. Okay. Oh my god. I'm making such a fucking mess. Yeah. Like this. Like this. Okay, is the electricity passing now? God damn it. Oh! Oh! Something shifted. This began to work. Is it gonna work? Please work. Please work. Oh! Okay. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna have a power cable carbonara in here, but whatever. Let me just have a look if this works. Because it's a pretty stressful situation. Okay. Let's see. Oh. No. Work. I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Yeah! That's the stuff. Yeah, amazing. Okay. I'm just gonna have to experiment with it a little bit, but it's gonna work. Bear with me. Now we can go back to our video.
Prophet, who took the moment and observed the orcs, and he found no hatred in their hearts, quite the opposite. This meeting would be one of the last peaceful encounters between the orcs and the Draenei, as the Legion had found their targets. I'm not going to go into complete details when it comes to origin story. I'm going to assume that you're familiar with it, and we're going to focus mainly on the changes. Like before, it was Talgoth that found the Draenei. Since their crash landing on the planet, it had sent out massive waves of holy energy throughout the twisting nether, and this drew his attention. Like before, he observed the orcs and he reported back to Kil'jaeden, who ordered his servant to stay out of this conflict, as they would turn the orcs against the Draenei. Talgoth was quite pissed about this. He had not spent millennia hunting the Draenei just so that the primitive orcs could spill their blood. Normally Kil'jaeden would have punished such insubordination, but he understood the anger, yet was unmoved, and he sent his servant away. He needed an agent, an orc that could manipulate the rest of the people to follow Kil'jaeden's will, and although there were many candidates amongst the orc, none of them had such potential as Gul'dan. He was born with a physical weakness into a small clan at the edge of Gorgrond, and the other orcs saw twist his form as an ill omen, and they eventually exiled him. The elder shaman took pity on Gul'dan and told him to go to the throne of elements, and there he might find his purpose in life from the spirits. The spirits, they gazed upon Gul'dan, and they sensed the darkness and fury in the orc's heart, and they rejected him.
But in their absence, other voices whispered.
Kil'jaeden promised Gul'dan power. Enough power that no one would ever pity him again, and he would become like a god. If only he would help the Legion with turning the orcs into a weapon to destroy the Draenei. The first orcish warlock was born in that moment, as Gul'dan gladly accepted the dark bargain. He informed his new master of a time where the orcs came together against the threat to save the elements from the ogre's influence. If Kil'jaeden could recreate that elemental upheaval, perhaps the clans would repeat history. So he guided Gul'dan, they attacked the throne of elements with fell magic, and the elements were thrown into chaos. Long droughts were followed by heavy rain. Floods devastated regions in Gorgrond and parts of Nagrand. Snowstorms blanketed parts of the Nan jungle and Terragar forest in ice. Rivers and streams soon enough dried up, which caused the wildlife to die by the thousands, and this caused massive suffering to the orcs. Their shamans could offer no guidance, since they could no longer properly communicate with the elements, and Gul'dan used his magic to throw in a bit of red pox, which took out a whole lot of orcs. One amongst those who fell to this disease was Chieftain Garad of the Frostwolf clan, which left his son Duratan to lead them all, and as you can imagine, the orcs were desperate for answers. Gul'dan was a perfect ally for the Legion, but the orcs would never follow someone like him. They they needed a figurehead under their control, which the orcs would trust, whose words the orcs would trust, and it was the shaman Ner'zhul of the Shadowmoon clan, respected by many, that was the perfect target. After engulfing the clan of his birth in Felfire to make sure that nobody knew where he came from, Gul'dan infiltrated the Shadowmoon clan, hiding away his fel powers, and he gained Ner'zhul's trust. He even managed to become Ner'zhul's apprentice, and through Gul'dan, Kil'jaeden began to twist Ner'zhul's thoughts. As Kil'jaeden did his thing with Ner'zhul, Gul'dan was sent on a different task. The orcs were in peril, they were working on Ner'zhul, somebody that the orcs could trust, and now the orcs had to believe that the Draenei were the enemy, and it was Gul'dan who would make it so. The Bladewind clan had suffered greatly from the elemental unrest and the red pox, which has claimed the lives of 70% of their clan. The warlock approached them as a representative of the Shadowmoon clan, and he convinced them that the Draenei were the ones responsible for their problems. If they were to spill the blood of the Draenei, such an act would surely appease the elemental spirits. As all orcs, the Bladewinds held the Shadowmoon in high regard, and they had no reason to distrust Gul'dan.
Orc.
They did, as they were told,
Come on.
they sought the Draenei caravans in greater numbers than ever before. They murdered dozens of innocents and took just as many prisoners. One of those prisoners was Liren, sister of Marad, who could sit by no longer. Velen still tried to maintain the peace, but when the Rangari reported back with information about the brutal sacrifices that were being made, he reluctantly agreed and the Draenei fought back. Marad was sadly enough too late to save his sister, and the sight of her mutilated dead body, it enraged him and he rampaged through the village. The Bladewinds were desperate to please the elements, so they fought until nearly every one of them were dead, and those that did try to escape, they were struck down by Gul'dan. He was enjoying the show from a distance, and none would survive to tell the truth of what had happened that day. Only Gul'dan's version would make it out, as he told the Shadowmoon clan all about how the Draenei had launched an unprovoked slaughter against the Bladewinds. Word of this quickly spread amongst the other clans, and the seed of hatred towards the Draenei, it took roots. Now, just as before in the original story, Kil'jaeden used the image of the orc ancestral spirits like Rokan for Ner'zhul to confirm what Gul'dan had told them. The horde was formed, the war was on, but Ner'zhul began to doubt and he made his way to Oshugan to communicate with the spirits. In this version, Kil'jaeden is actually aware of his plans and he told Gul'dan to prepare, to find those who could help him keep control of the Shadowmoon clan, as Ner'zhul turned out not to be the leader that the Demon Lord had hoped him to be. The real ancestors informed Ner'zhul about what was going on, but by the time that he got back, it was already far too late. Gul'dan and his followers, they took Ner'zhul before he could reach his clan, and despite many of the new warlocks wishing to murder Ner'zhul, Gul'dan forbade it, as Kil'jaeden, he wanted Ner'zhul to watch what would become of the Orcish race. Besides this delicious torture, it was also out of necessity, since Ner'zhul suddenly disappearing, that would raise suspicion amongst the other clans. In the months to come, Gul'dan and his warlocks would constantly abuse Ner'zhul and treat him as little more than a slave. The elder shaman feared death, and he would become too weak to disobey his masters. Over time, he would fade from the public eye, and his usurpers would become the voice of the Shadowmoon clan. While the Horde was fighting against the Draenei just as Kil'jaeden wanted, they were also fighting amongst each other. Especially chieftains like Gromar's Hellscream and Blackhand, they argued over battle tactics, and Kil'jaeden understood that what the orcs needed was a leader. They needed a war chief. It was Blackhand that was the best choice, and despite Gul'dan being pretty pissed at him not being the war chief, his fear for Kil'jaeden, it prevented him from speaking out. After teaching some of the Blackrock shamans the way of the warlock, and magically aging and empowering their young, Blackhand agreed to take up leadership of the Horde, but it was actually Gul'dan and the Shadow Council, they were the ones who were pulling the strings from behind the curtains. This council consisted of those trusted and loyal to Gul'dan, but not just orcs were accepted. For example, there was Garona half-Orcan, a union between a Bladewind orc and a Draenei slave that proved to be a ferocious fighter, and she possessed a keen intelligence and a gift with learning new languages. Originally, it was said that Marad's sister was Garona's mother, and although it's still not entirely impossible, I think that the way that they describe the events in the Chronicles, the time period of just 2 years, that just seems to be a bit too short. Either way, Garona managed to escape the Bladewind clan when they were destroyed by the Draenei, and eventually encountered the Shadow Council. Gul'dan sympathized with her to earn her trust, seeing how they both knew the pain of living as an outcast. And the moment that she let down her guard, the Shadow Council struck. They placed magical spells on her mind, which kept her obedient, and it allowed Gul'dan to see what she saw, and they used her as the perfect assassin.
Gul'dan sends his best.
Another non-orc example to join the council, that was the ogre Cho'Gall. Where Garona was an outcast, Cho'Gall had enjoyed the good life within High Maul, where he had learned from the most talented ogre sorcerers. His arrogance and lust for power, they put him at odds with the ruling elite, as they feared that his growing popularity that would allow him to take control of the city, so they made an attempt on his life. He barely survived his attempt, but now he had no other choice but to flee Heimal, thirsting for
Oh,
vengeance,
okay.
and he came across the Shadow Council. Gul'dan could appreciate his confidence and lust for power. He made him his foremost apprentice, and he taught him the secrets of fel magic, and informed him about the Burning Legion. Cho'Gall was loyal to Gul'dan for the moment, but he was also more than willing to break ties at any time. He only desired the power, and he was not interested in the Legion or the demons or Gul'dan's massive plans. The moment that Gul'dan and the Shadow Council ceased being useful, Cho'Gall was prepared to turn his back on them.
We're done taking orders from you.
With his own personal council to back him up, Gul'dan worked on making the other clans except Blackhand as the war chief. His Shadow Council agents were sent out to spread the word of Blackhand's mighty deeds, while also spying on the clans to see who opposed the Horde. A prime target that was identified was Chieftain Zagrel of the White Claw clan, who called on all the other clans to end this senseless war to Draenei and focus their attention on shamanistic rituals. One quick command to Garona and one dagger through the heart, and that opposing voice was silenced. To seal the deal, Gul'dan preyed on the fears of the shaman at the next Kosh Ark festival, and he proclaimed that the Black Rocks had restored their strength with glorious new power, namely fel magic. Shamans of all clans eagerly accepted his new power, since the elements, they no longer answered the calls, and unanimously the Horde accepted Blackhand as their chieftain. Like the original story, Durotan of the Frostwolf clan, he was not happy with what was happening to his people, but he feared that speaking out would mean dire consequences for him and his clan, just like what had happened to the White Claw clan. Blackhand was quite the leader, and he whipped the Horde into shape. So far they had just tossed their people at the Draenei, but he worked on utilizing the strengths of the different clans. The smallest and most mobile, they would act as scouts, whereas the other stronger clans, they would lead the direct assaults. Now not all of the orcs were immediately on board with his new leadership, but they were either won over with offers of power, or by public execution, since Blackhand did not take kindly to insubordination. To help him with maintaining order and discipline, he surrounded himself with mighty lieutenants, and the greatest of them were Eitric, Orgrim Doomhammer, and Varrock Sourfang. A new leader and order amongst the ranks, that was all great, but the Horde needed more numbers, and to bolster this, the clans were ordered to also magically age their children, and the first signs of the fel corruption that started to show. Durotan noticed that their brown skin was becoming splotchy and green. While the Horde was rising, news reached Gul'dan about the Pale in the Grand. These are the orcs that were sent into exile after following their shamanistic ritual, and they were drawn to the Naru Kur within Oshugan. This Naru was still spilling forth the delicious void energy, and the Pale started to study this power and communicate with the Void Lords. The monstrous entities responded to the orcs, bombarding them with visions of apocalypse and revealing the secrets of using shadow magic. The void energies would over time turn their skin white, and they would start to call themselves the Pale. Now Gul'dan, he wasn't too interested in them, but Kil'jaeden was intrigued. He wanted the orcs to secure victory over Draenei at any cost, which meant that they had to investigate the Pale and determine whether their magic could strengthen the Hordes. It was Cho'Gall who was sent out to investigate, and while he expected them to put up a fight, the Pale were quite happy to share the prophecy of doom, something that they called the Hour of Twilight. The Pale saw this as a time when shadow would envelop the universe and snuff out all life in existence.
Make peace with your end, for the hour of twilight falls.
In that very moment, their prophecies meant very little to the ogre. He was far more interested in the shadow magic that they could wield, and he used the beliefs to his advantage, claiming that if they would help the Horde, they could bring about the Hour of Twilight. The Pale reveled in this opportunity, and they pledged themselves to the Horde, forming a whole new clan known as the Twilight's Hammer. Over time, Cho'Gall would also learn to master this shadow magic, and he would see the truth in the Pale's prophecy. That's still a while away though. Now with the Horde gathering their forces and building their citadel, the Draenei saw the truth of what was going on. They saw that the Legion was involved. They made ready to defend their two main cities, namely Shefrev and Karabor, abandoning all their outlying settlements. The Hordes used fel magic, and they began killing the plant of Draenor, and the elements rallied together, vowing to destroy the orcs and stop the desecration of the land. By pooling their dwindling powers together, they created one single mighty being called Kirak the Fire Lord. This was supposed to stop the threat of the Horde, but Gul'dan would not give up that easily. Now many of the orcs, they saw this attack as a sign of angering the elements, but Gul'dan managed to flip it around. By pooling their powers together, the elements had made themselves vulnerable, and he would make them pay. He would steal Kyrak's power for himself and the rest of the Horde, and he would also destroy the connection between the orcs and the elements. With his Shadow Council followers, they wove an immense spell that flooded Cairhroc with fell power, and it shattered the being's physical form. The mountain roared in protest, chasms tore through the earth, and rivers of fell and elemental energies it spewed forth. Gul'dan and his warlocks, they used these energies to infuse the other orcs with strength, and now their soldiers were more powerful than ever before. The last stand of the elements, it had dire consequences. The orcs' connection with them was now broken, and what remained, the fell volcano from which Cairhroc had emerged, that would be known as the Hand of Gul'dan. With the elemental threat out of the way, Karabor was their next target, and the Draenei put up quite a fight, more than the orcs expected, but it would all be for nothing. The Darkstar, the void energies from the Naru Ka'ara, that was used by the orcs to channel it on Karabor. A massive pillar of void energy ripped through the heavens, and it slammed into the Draenei. Many of the defenders, they died instantly, while others were driven to madness, and Velen had to call on every bit of his willpower to hold the void at bay. He rallied what survivors he could, and he led them through Karabor's harbor to the final safe haven on Draenor. He led them to Shefrev's city. The Temple of Karabor would be forever changed by this attack, and it was now known as the Black Temple, a place where Gul'dan and his Shadow Council would gladly make their home. The remaining Draenei defenders, they were captured for future use, and now only one more target remained to be taken. But the city, built upon the remains of Concordia, there was no easy target, and the orcs needed something more. Just like before, they were offered the demon blood. Durathen was warned by Ner'zhul, who had overheard the Shadow Council plans, and he warned him not to drink, while Orgrim, he saw for himself that drinking this so-called gift, that was not a good idea. The majority of the orcs, however, they gladly accepted it, greatly increasing their power, but also shackling themselves to the will of the Legion. Not all of the orcs had drunk from Manora's blood, but those who had, they would radiate a invisible aura of fell energy, and this energy would slowly seep into the skin and bones of nearby orcs. Eventually, even orcs like Durathen and Orgrim and all the others who had not tasted the demon blood, they would find their skin turned completely green, something that was even passed on to the newly born. So here we are, the Draenei make ready to defend their city, and this time it's not the Naru that tell Velen to go, this time it's the Exarchs that tell him that the people need him as a leader, while most of the people, they would stay behind to make it look like the orcs succeeded. The Red Mist, an attack originally used by the Legion, is now explained by Gul'dan and his warlocks melding their magics with the Red Pox, which created a volatile concoction that would spread the plague amongst the Draenei. This burned their skin and choked the breath from their lungs, and the long-term effects was that the Draenei who breathed in the mist, they found their connection to the light was gone. They would devolve into something called the Broken, or even further into something that they called the Lost Ones. With Shefra's sect, some of its survivors made their way to Akadun, which Gul'dan knew about, and he feared that they would call upon the spirits of their ancestors that would aid them in the war against the Horde. To deal with them, Terangor and some of the forces were sent out, who used their new abilities to try and summon a powerful demon to strike down their enemies. Instead of summoning a demon, they accidentally summoned an otherworldly elemental known as Murmur, and his entry into the world, it sent out a massive shockwave that ripped the earth asunder, killing many of the Draenei inside and leaving Akadun as we know it today. Some of the warlocks, they were left behind to keep Murmur under control, so they could not use its incredible might against the Horde. So Shefrev has now fallen, many of the Draenei are dead, and those that did escape, they held out within the Zangarmarsh. Blackhand had more goals than just exterminate the Draenei though. He wanted to conquer all of Draenor. Kilrock led the Bleeding Hollow into Farallon, leeching life from the primals, and used the stolen power to burn down the forest. As the wilds burned, Kilrock and his army slaughtered every Botanian Janissar that they could find. Meanwhile, the Warsong and the Twilight Clan, they toppled the ogres of Highmaul, while Frostwolf, Whiteclaw and Thunderlord, they were ordered to wipe out the Grun, Ogron and Magnaron, and many of the ogres that had not joined the Horde. One of the few Grun that actually survived this assault, he was called Gruul, and he would defend his lair in Gorgrond. Not even the Arakoa were safe from the might of the Horde, as Kardak of Bladefist, he formed an invasion force from the Shattered Hand, the Burning Blade and the Dragonmaw clans. They made a pact with the Arakoa outcast, who joined them in this fight, but in the end Kargov, he turned his blade on all the Arakoa that he could find, either murdering them on the spot, or tossing them in the cursed blood of Sephe, enjoying the sight of the high Arakoa writhing in agony. Only a small number of the Arakoa would actually survive, shrouding themselves in the shadows, hiding away from the Horde in the deepest corners of Terrakar Forest. Some of the Arakoa banded together under the leadership of a former Skyreach guard named Krizik, who led his followers to Akandun, knowing that most of the orcs feared the haunted ruins. He held on to a bitter hatred for the Horde, and he waited for the day when he might get his vengeance on those who had spilled the blood of his people. Now this is where one of the more interesting changes to the storyline take place. In the past, Kil'jaeden saw that the city of Sephiroth had fallen, and he just abandoned the orcs to their fate. Time passed, Medivh, under the influence of Sargeras, he made contact with Gul'dan, and he showed him the way to Azeroth. These all seemed very disconnected from each other, like Kil'jaeden was just working on his own, and Sargeras had very little to do with it. Now, it's actually Sargeras that directly ordered Kil'jaeden to cut all communication with Gul'dan, since he wanted them to be desperate enough to embark on any quest if it meant saving their lives. The orcs were powerful weapons that the Lord of the Legion could use to weaken Azeroth and get it ready for an invasion. But before they were ready, they had to come down from the rush of victory, and as time passed on, things didn't get any better for the Horde. Their planet was corrupted and dying, demon blood was pumping in their veins, and with no enemy to fight, they often turned on each other. At just the right moment, Gul'dan was informed about Azeroth, and they created the Dark Portal with not the sacrifice of one single Draenei child, instead it were many more, the prisoners that they had taken throughout their long campaign, something that you could also see in the Warcraft movie. The Dark Portal was established, and the Horde made ready for their first invasion of Azeroth. That's the new version of Rise of the Horde in a nutshell, and the story of the war between the Alliance and Horde, that pretty much stayed the same for the most part. There is a bit of additional information when it comes to what Medivh was like, how Lane Rin became the king, but for the most part, it is as we know it. For those wondering, how does Ner'zhul fit in all of this with these changes? Well, it's pretty much the same. The Horde got their asses kicked during the first invasion. Tedangor informs him about the artifacts, and they work on making more portals to different worlds. Near the end of the story, Ner'zhul abandons his people just like he's done before, and this could lead into him becoming the Lich King. Now, it is less of an evil character. In the past, Ner'zhul really took the spotlight, right? And in the Chronicles, that doesn't really happen, but the essence is still the same. Now, to wrap up this video, I have a couple of final things to talk about that really stood out for me. First of all, about Medivh. Medivh was actually summoned to Karazhan by his mother Egwene, and Morus, the butler that you see there, he was actually a close friend of hers who agreed to stay with Medivh and help maintain the tower. Medivh was actually quite a playboy during the day, very similar to the Medivh that we see in One Night at Karazhan, but at night he would do the most awful things. Opening the Dark Portal, that alarmed Egwene, who could sense that a Guardian's power was used to do this, her son's power. So she set out to confront him together with a blue dragon named Arcanagos, one of the few allies that she had made during her long years of exile. The truth of Sargeras' corruption was revealed. Arcanagos was burned into Nightbane as we know him today, and the Guardians clashed with each other. Sargeras was definitely mighty, but Egwene had experience, so the Demon Lord, he reached out and drained the life of the hundreds of humans who were fleeing the Tower of Karazhan. He pushed Medivh to destroy Egwene once and for all, but a small part of the Guardian, it was still able to resist, and instead she was banished. Not even Medivh knew where he had sent her, but he could not sense her presence anywhere on Azeroth. The only person to survive this brutal attack, that was the human Morus, who was driven half mad by what he had witnessed. Medivh tried to ease his suffering by purging the memories of that day, but even so, the poor man was never the same, and neither was the tower, since it was now haunted by many spirits of those who were used for the spell.
I've gone and made a mess. Now, where was I?
Garona Half-Orcan has a fair few changes in her story arc, mainly with Gul'dan being able to see what she saw. She had a gift for learning new languages, and from the human prisoners she found out about Karazhan and Medivh. She had the hope of inspecting the tower without being noticed, but her timing was pretty bad since Medivh, he was in a dark mood after his deadly battle with Egwene, and he captured Garona the moment that she stepped inside of the tower. The assassin thought that her life was over, but Medivh felt sympathy for her, seeing how she was also an outcast, and he was intrigued by her intelligence, by her entire existence. It was clear to him that Garona was no threat, and thanks to Gul'dan's endless cruelty, she had no real love for the Horde. He decided that it would be more valuable to have her as an ally or even a friend amongst the orcs, rather than another spirit haunting his home, so he set her free and he even invited her to come back whenever she liked. She did just that, something that Medivh's new apprentice Khadgar could not appreciate at first, but over time they developed a friendship and they even discovered that it was Medivh who had opened up the Dark Portal. Once they found out, they quickly escaped the tower to get help from Stormwind, and when Gul'dan realized that Garona was in the same room as King Lane, he tried to use his magic to force her to kill the king, but Garona was actually able to resist this murderous urge. Lothar, Khadgar and Garona and a couple of forces, they
now we're getting to the part that we covered on the lore
made way back to the
livestream.
tower. They confronted the Guardian, and in that battle, Medivh assaulted her mind, trying to take control of Gul'dan's mental chains and use her against her allies. His spell work was only partially effective, confusion rippled through the half-orc, and she soon found it impossible to differentiate between friend or foe. She fled the tower and made her way back to Stormwind to inform King Lane of what had happened, but standing near the king, something snapped in her mind.
Bad news, sire.
She had resisted Gul'dan's order to kill the king before, but her fight with the Guardian, it had scrambled her thoughts. The line between friend and foe blurred. Her willpower faltered, and with tears streaming down her face, she obeyed the command and plunged the dagger into Lane's heart. This explains why Garona still killed Lane, even though Gul'dan at this point ended up in a coma. This would explain why that still happened. Now, after the assassination, Garona escaped the keep in the confusion that followed, and without their king, Stormwind eventually fell to the Horde. But as we all know, the Alliance of Lordaeron would win the war over Azeroth. They shut down the Dark Portal, they built Netherguard Keep to keep an eye on things, and it was there where Garona made contact with Khadgar. She had fought her way back into control, she shrugged away as many of Gul'dan's lingering mental chains as she could, and she confessed to killing the king, and Khadgar believed her when she told him that she had no choice. He could see the Shadow Council spellwork still woven through her thoughts, and the next few months they worked on unraveling the Council's hold on Garona. They were actually successful, and for the first time in her life, Garona was free. In gratitude, she offered to do whatever she could to hunt down the Shadow Council still left on Azeroth, an offer that Khadgar gladly accepted. Eventually, the Dark Portal reopened, and the Horde came back for the second invasion, and despite wishing to join the Alliance forces as they took the battle to Draenor, Khadgar requested her to stay behind and keep on hunting the Shadow Council. Her journey would eventually put her on the trail of Cho'Gall to the mysterious lands of Kalimdor, while the Sons of Lothar, they did their best to prevent the Horde from invading different planets, eventually being forced to shut down the portal on Draenor's side. Now, what's really interesting is that there's no mention of a love relation between Medivh and Garona. There's no mention of a pregnancy or Medan. We already knew that Blizzard had made the decision to retcon the events with Medan in the comics, but they haven't explained what exactly did happen. Cutting out Medan is fine and all, but it doesn't explain what happens with Cho'Gall, the Twilight's Hammer, the events of Garona and Cthulhu and Varian, all those events in the comics. It doesn't explain what exactly happened. Hopefully we'll find that information in the next Chronicle, and I've said this many times now, but I can highly recommend picking up the Chronicle for yourself. There are a lot more details that I haven't touched upon yet, like how the different Orcish clans migrated, Deathwing, the artifacts that they needed.
Okay, so this was all the events leading up to the first invasion, and when we were doing the campaign, we covered the events of the fall of Stormwind. So this is how it happened. Garona was the one who killed King Lane. And that was the little reference. The orcs came because they were so desperate. They were just looking for a home, but it was all part of a bigger manipulation plan by Kil'jaeden and Sargeras and all these demon bozos. Oh. Is it gonna work? Oh my god, I am hating this. Why am I having these electric problems? Why is this happening? This is such a fucking bullshit. Why can't Paradox just make a game that works? My fucking god. Why am I dealing with these issues? Like, why do I have to do this right now? I just don't understand it. And it's like, the worst thing is like there's no pattern to it. Sometimes it just works and sometimes it just doesn't. Which is so fucking dumb. But anyways, we can play something else. Let's see what we have here. How about Noble Prophet Velen? You can look at the story of Prophet Velen. I hope I will fix this soon.
Hello,
I'm sorry.
everyone. The story of Velen the Prophet and his Draenei is a very long story. He and his people have been around for quite a while, so I might not be able to get all the details in, but I'll sure as hell try. The story begins around 20,000 years ago, and to put it in perspective, the Well of Eternity didn't explode until around 10,000 years ago. Give or take a few years by now. The Draenei called themselves Eredar back then, and in the time they lived on a planet named Argus. Their leaders were called Archimonde, Kil'jaeden, and Velen the Prophet. Now these three, they were not just leading together, they were like soul brothers, man. They were so evolved that they could communicate and share visions with their minds. And yeah, they were just very, very close. And Velen was the only one with the gift of sight. Now one day on the planet of Argus, they received a visit from Sargeras. He found great potential in the Eredar and he promised them the universe. Worlds to explore, people to adore them, knowledge from far and wide just for them to study. All they had to do was pledge their loyalty to Sargeras. Now Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, they were directly on board with this plan, but to Velen, something didn't quite feel right. He went to the Atamal crystal, a gift to his people from a time long forgotten, and he meditated about this. At first he saw the same vision as Sargeras had promised them, but then the vision changed to show his true plans. In this real vision, Velen looked at himself and the others, and he saw that they were transformed into horrific beings. The loving people that would follow them changed into demonic beings of the twisting nether. Worlds were a he could see, talk of. The crystal warned him that what he saw was not the truth, and in reality Sargeras had already begun with transforming the Eredar into Manari. Manari is the Eredar word for something twisted, unnatural, tainted by foul magic. Was it not for the crystal, Velen would not have seen the betrayal until it was way too late. His corrupted brothers and sisters slowly made their way towards the gathered group, and desperately Velen called to the heavens. And the heavens responded. A bright light hit the Atamal crystal and separated it in 7 individual crystals, all with a different color. A shield was formed around Velen and those that he had gathered, and above them a ship appeared. The Naru had kept their word, and they told Velen to bring the 7 crystals with him, for he would surely need them. Just in time, the Eredar managed to escape the planet, and from that moment on, they would call themselves Draenei, also known as Exiled Ones.
The Naru have not forgotten us.
Kil'jaeden took this betrayal of Velen very personal, and he swore that he would find him, even if it took 1,000 years. And so the chase was on. The Draenei would run, Kil'jaeden and the Burning Legion would follow. Every time they came close, Velen would be warned, or one of the crystals would allow Velen and his people to escape in time. It's not explained what happened to the planets that they left behind, but it's not hard to imagine that the Burning Legion conquered them. This went on for a very long time, until around 200 years ago, the Draenei had to make a crash landing on the planets they would call Draenor. For some reason, the Naru named Kur had fallen ill, so they couldn't use the ship anymore and they were stuck on the planet. It was Tolgaf who found the Draenei again, and he told Kil'jaeden. This time Kil'jaeden had a better plan in mind. Instead of going in with his full force with the might of the Burning Legion and just to see the Draenei escape again, he decided to use another race that lived on Draenor. He decided to use the Orcs. He manipulated them into becoming a fighting force known as the First Horde. This also included offering the blood of his servant Manoroth, which gave the Orcs incredible powers but also made them slaves. When the attack started, the Draenei were pretty confused. Before this, they weren't exactly allies with the Orcs, but they had been trading with them. There was even a moment where they saved the lives of 2 of these Orcs, and one of those Orcs was the father of Thrall, Enel's named Durotan, and the other was Orgrim Doomhammer. When Velen figured out what was going on, that Kil'jaeden was behind it, he tried to make peace with the Orcs. He ended up in front of Durotan and told him that he wanted to take them all to Oshugan. Oshugan was actually the ship that the Draenei crashed with, but over the years had become a sacred place to the Orcs. When Naru fall ill or enter their death cycle, they enter a cycle called the Void, where they unwillingly suck up all the light that they can, including the souls of the departed. The Naru Kur had befriended the souls of the departed Orcs, and he had inspired the shamans of the Orcs to take care of him. That made this place very sacred to the Orcs, and when Velen told them that this was because of the Draenei and the Naru, well, that pissed them off. Imagine that the one that you were told is your enemy, the Draenei, is now telling you that your most sacred place is because of them. They weren't exactly happy with that. In fact, they were very insulted, and it took everything Durotan had to keep his people from murdering Velen on the spot. His orders were to deliver Velen to Ner'zhul, but because of their past, because the Draenei saved his life, and because he didn't exactly trust Ner'zhul, he decided to let Velen go. This action did not stop the Horde from marching on. It was their mission to kill every Draenei they could find, and near the end they were corrupted by foul magic, they were corrupted by demon blood, all kinds of vile things. The war would come to a conclusion with a final assault on Shafra City. The Draenei had made a plan to leave enough of the people behind so that Velen and some of the others could flee to Zangarmarsh and live another day. This pained Velen greatly because leaving his people behind is not something easy to do, but the Naru assured him that he and his people had to survive. They still had a role to play in the army of light against the Burning Legion, so they had to survive. The orcs, they sacked the city. The Draenei who stand behind sacrificed their life, and their plan went as good as they hoped. Kil'jaeden believed all the Draenei to be dead, and he left the orcs to their fate. The planet of Draenor was all but destroyed, the use of foul magic had corrupted the land as much as it had the orcs, food and water was becoming a rare thing, and all of this led to the first Orcish invasion of Azeroth. For Velen and his people, times were not any easier. Some of the Draenei who had stayed behind in Shafra, they managed to survive. During the battle, a strange red mist entered the city, and the effects of it only became clear later on. What happened was that some of the Draenei that had breathed in this mist, they started to devolve. And they started to devolve into the form known as the Broken. Not only did their bodies change, they also had trouble with speaking, with thinking, and to a race like the Draenei that was so highly evolved, that fate was just horrible, man. You would imagine that the other Draenei would be very happy with some of these survivors, because at this point in time, there weren't that many Draenei left. What happened instead is that they decided to send all the Broken away and separate them from the healthy ones. They feared that their condition was somehow contagious, and so they just sent them all away to their separate camps. Amongst those Broken that they sent away was a former paladin named Nobundo. And not only did he turn into a Broken, he also lost his connection to the light. Years he tried to reconnect, but instead he received an answer from a completely different source. This source was the elements, once allies to the shamans of the orc, and they now came to Nobundo. They offered him their power, their allegiance, in return for his respect for the elements. Years of training with the elements would follow, and the day came that Nobundo returned to the people that had turned him away. He offered his wisdom of the elements, but still the Draenei wanted nothing to do with him. Only Velen the Prophet, who had received a vision of Nobundo, recognized him as part of the salvation for their people. And so the race of the Draenei, first only highly attuned to the light, now began their training in the ways of shamanism.
Not all who wander are lost.
Now this was not just an event that happened in a week, right? It took him years to learn the craft of shamanism, and in the meantime the world around the Draenei didn't exactly stand still. Actually some major events happened, but I'm going to have to keep this short to focus the story on Velen. The Horde tried to invade Azeroth, but they were pushed back and the portal was closed behind them. Ner'zhul opened several rifts to different worlds, causing Draenor to nearly destroy itself and turning it into Outland as we know it today. Macfaridan used those rifts to summon more demons, and he proclaimed himself as Lord of Outland. Khadgar looked for help with his Burning Legion problem, and the Naru, led by Adal, aided them to take Shafra City. Now sometime after the destruction of Draenor, the Naru brought the Tempest Keep to Outland. In Azeroth, the events of Warcraft 3 took place. Arthas assaulted Silvermoon City, nearly wiping out all the High Elves, and used the Sunwell to resurrect Kel'Thuzad. This action destroyed the Sunwell, and it cut the High Elves of their source for magic. They would now start to call themselves Blood Elves, and Kael'thas Sunstrider was the leader. Kael'thas would eventually ally himself with Lady Vash, and later would ally with Illidan, whose story would take them back to Outland. There they teamed up with another Broken named Akama.
Work,
Together,
you
they sealed the rifts
motherfucker.
that Macfaridan
Work!
was using, and this was to prevent them from getting any more forces in. They eventually imprisoned Macfaridan, and Illidan took over the Black Temple. This wasn't exactly what Akama had in mind, so he waited until we arrived to overthrow Illidan. But that's a different story. Now those are the events in a very short version, and at this point Illidan is under the command of Kil'jaeden, and he was told to stop Arthas from merging with the Lich King. He failed in his mission, and together with Kael'thas and Lady Vash, they returned to Outland and they started to prepare a defense against Kil'jaeden. Now for some reason, this could be because of Illidan, this could be because of Kael'thas himself, but at some point they sent his troops to assault Shafra City, which as I said was in the hands of Adal. The Blood Elf troops that he sent were under the leadership of Vorinclev the Seer. However, Vorinclev had received a vision which showed him that the only hope for his race to survive did not lie with Kael'thas, but with Adal. As they arrived at Shafra, they laid down their weapons and they pledged their allegiance to Adal and the Naru, which was a heavy blow for Kael'thas because these were some of his finest troops. Another assault from Kael'thas and his troops was on the Tempest Keep. They wanted to use its technology for their own benefit, and inside the keep, they only found a Naru named Muru to defend it. Kael'thas easily captured the Naru, and he sent them to Silvermoon City, where they would use its power of the light to empower paladins of the Blood Elves, and these paladins were also known as Blood Knights. Lady Liadrin was the first to do this, and so she became their leader. After the Blood Elves had taken over the Tempest Keep, Velen decided that it was time to search for a new place to take refuge. Together with Nobundo and the rest of his people, he personally led an assault on the Tempest Keep, specifically the part known as the Exodar. They took control of the ship, but the Blood Elves figured out what they were doing and they sabotaged it. This caused the ship to spin out of control through the twisting nether until it landed on a planet known as Azeroth.
1 month ago.
Okay, I fucking did it. My god. Electric fucking wiring problem. I'll give you a fucking electric wiring problem! Ah! Oh, this was a fucking nightmare. I feel like Paradox really hates its players. I really think that the main motivation behind the way that they design these games and that they bring updates is first to make it as inconvenient and as devastating for the player base as humanly possible. Like, literally, like Raven, you sometimes complain about Blizzard, but Blizzard ain't got nothing on Paradox. Paradox really fucking hates its players, I think. Anyway, sorry, I was hyper focused because I really wanted to get this done. I really wanted to get it out of the way so I can move on. Because obviously, like, if I couldn't... How can I reduce... I'm already paying them to do business. I play with no money, so I don't like playing with all the economy bullshit. Like, I just don't like it. I like to build beautiful things, and I don't like to worry about money. I just want to build a city that's beautiful and functional in terms of transport, like that there's no massive traffic jams and that the public transport works. But when it comes to well, high resource cost, yeah, I mean, okay, I just oh my god, is this gonna be like this from now on? Is this our life? But why? Why is there no... Why is there no tram connection here? What? What is happening? Why is it like this? God. I love building cities and I love designing and detailing all this stuff, but if I'm gonna have to start new every time that there's an update, I will never finish a fucking city. And at this point, I kind of want to start fresh because I don't know how to fix any of this. And then, like, I have roads covered under fucking layers and layers and layers of surfaces and networks and bullshit. And I can't even go into the fucking road without destroying everything here. Like, if I have to redo everything, I may as well start fresh. Maybe I'll do it better next time. But why is it like this? I don't get it. Why is it not connecting? I get it. It's a sharp turn, but like let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Oh. Okay. It's a bit uneven, but we can collectively squint here. I'm just concerned about these, like the high resource costs, because, okay, maybe. No pedestrian access to what? I had invisible roads. Are they still here? No. Invisible road. Oh, okay. Okay. I think it's gonna be a lot more fixing than I have anticipated. Because I was like, ah, sure, like I'll fix the electricity. It probably, I have to like redo the main line and then it's gonna work. But no. Literally every custom road that I have made through World Builder, which is 95% of the roads that I've made, that I have in the city, are custom roads. So. Ugh, this is so fucking annoying. Okay. Yeah, this is so stupid. Why Paradox hates us so much? Why? What have we done to it? Okay. Alright, well, I'm gonna continue fixing and let's see if I can do it.
Oh, a terrible explosion tore open the skies above northern Kalimdor. At that moment, the great ship Exodar plummeted from the heavens and crashed upon the world of Azeroth. Having fled the ravaged world of Outland, the noble Draenei used the dimension-traveling Exodar to reach safe haven. Inspired by tales of the heroic alliance that stood against the might of the Burning Legion, the Draenei have come to enlist aid in retaking their shattered homeland. Dedicated to preserving life and upholding the tenets of the Holy Light, the Draenei hope to gather a new coalition of warriors to battle the Burning Legion and put a halt to its horrific burning crusade. Armed only with courage and their unshakable faith in the light, the Draenei look forward to finding the Alliance and ushering them towards the destiny that awaits beyond the skies of Azeroth.
This brings us to the events of the Burning Crusade, where the story takes us to the Tempest Keep. In the meantime, Kael'thas has changed his allegiance since Illidan has gone rather crazy after his defeat by the hands of Arthas. Kael'thas no longer serves Illidan, he now serves Kil'jaeden. We fight with him of course, but we don't exactly finish him off. He somehow manages to survive the assault and he sends his new troops, the Fellbloods, to attack his own city of Silvermoon and bring the Naru Muru to the Sunwell Plateau. This attack leads to Lady Liadrin to seek a new source of power for her and the Blood Knights. She travels to Shafra City to visit the Naru Adal and she begs him for forgiveness for what they had done with Muru. Adal reveals that the events were prophesied by Velen long ago. Silvery Moon, washed in blood, led astray into the night, armed with the Sword of Broken Light. Broken, then betrayed by one, standing there bestride the sun. At darkest hour, redemption comes, a knightly lady sworn to blood. It was no mistake that Muru was the only Naru left in the Tempest Keep, and all events happened exactly as they were supposed to. I see it clearly now. I renounce my loyalties to the House Sunstrider and its false prince. I pledge the blades of my Blood Knights to the defeat of Kil'jaeden and the restoration of Silvermoon. We will fight beside you, Adal. Draenei and Blood Elf band together to stop Kael'thas and the summoning of Kil'jaeden. Along the way, we encounter Muru again and we're forced to fight him. In the end, we manage to stop Kil'jaeden, and this is the point where we see Velen again.
Not all who wander.
Mortal heroes, your victory here today was foretold long ago. My brother's anguished cry of defeat will echo across the universe, bringing renewed hope to all those who still stand against the Burning Crusade. As the Legion's final defeat draws ever nearer, stand proud in the knowledge that you have saved worlds without number from the flame. Just as this day marks an ending, so too does it herald a new beginning. The creature Entropius, whom you were forced to destroy, was once the noble Naru, Muru. In life, Muru channeled vast energies of light and hope. For a time, a misguided few sought to steal those energies.
Our arrogance was unpardonable. We damned one of the most noble beings of all. We may never atone for this sin.
Then fortunate it is that I have reclaimed the noble Naru's spark from where it fell. Where faith dwells, hope is never lost, young blood elf.
Can it be?
Gaze now, mortals, upon the heart of Muru. Unblemished, bathed by the light of creation, just as it was at the dawn. In time, the light and hope held within will rebirth more than this mere fount of power. Mayhap they will rebirth the soul of a nation.
Blessed ancestors! I feel it. So much love. So much grace. There are no words. Impossible to describe.
Salvation, young one. It waits for us all. Farewell.
He has taken the core of the defeated Narumuru and he uses it to restore the Sunwell to its former glory, saving the Blood Elf race from their addiction, and in time they will heal.
Empowered by the holy light and the undying strength of their convictions, the Draenei led the charge against the demonic Burning Legion in Outland. Now, with the Legion's defeat, they have completed the desperate mission that first brought them to Azeroth. Though some Draenei were sent back to Outland to revitalize their former civilization, the majority have vowed to remain and uphold their sacred commitment to the Alliance. Driven by a powerful vision, the immortal prophet Velen believes that a great war between the darkness and the light is fast approaching, and that Azeroth will be its principal battleground. As one of Velen's chosen, you must stand bravely before the Shadow and ensure that your people are ready for the war to come.
That's the end of the Burning Crusade story, and unfortunately after that we don't see a whole lot of Velen or the Draenei. He makes an appearance every now and again, but nothing really important. Outside of the game, in the novels and in the stories, we learn that he has taken Anduin Wrynn under his wing and he teaches him the ways of the light. In Velen's short story on the WoW website, he receives a vision about Anduin leading the army of light. Instead of the prince, an armored warrior stood before him, his plate helm and breastplate shining with the essence of the light itself. The warrior wielded a sword forged from the same material as the armor, held it aloft as he perched on an outcropping. Whether it was on another world or Azeroth, Velen couldn't quite tell. And suddenly the dark sky above erupted with the combined chivalry of Azeroth's races. The Blood Elves, Orcs, Trolls, Tauren, and even the accursed undead and scheming goblins rode flying mounts of every sort and description. They were armored and armed in magical weaponry, glowing with so much power it hurts Velen's eyes to look at them. Besides the legions of the Horde, the ancient Night Elves charged with humans, dwarves and gnomes, whose ancestors formed the original alliance. And the shape-changing Worgen were united with them. Velen's own Draenei bolstered the army, their ranks adorned in otherworldly metals and bearing crystalline maces and swords. The Alliance and Horde were not alone. Dragons swooped and soared in formations that made the sky resemble a giant, multicolored reptilian wing. They blanketed the horizon with their physical size and numbers, and when they roared a challenge, it shook not just the earth Velen stood on, but the universe as well. And yet, for all this, the greatest shock to Velen's senses came as he saw those that flew just beyond the army of dragons. The Naru had taken the field, so many that Velen didn't understand how creation could contain them. The power of these beings of light filled Velen's heart with hope, swept away the lonely centuries, and left him wonder that he could ever despair, that the dark, no matter how terrible, could ever truly reign. And then a shadow fell. It was vast and empty and swallowed all light that entered it. Velen knew it would be all-consuming until at last it would turn and devour itself, endlessly gnawing on nothing in the great dark beyond, removing all meaning from the universe, from the most heartbreaking sonata to the most arresting sunset. It was too terrible to see, to comprehend, and yet the army headed straight for it, and the light began to fade. Right now, Anduin is just a priest, and in my opinion he still needs a whole lot of story development if they're ever going to make him lead the army. With that said, the vision is there, the prophecy is there, and we know where the story will take us. As I told you all at the start, Velen and the Draenei are very old, and he and his people have been through a lot. Still to this day, they try to stop their fallen brothers from destroying the universe. Together with the Alliance and the Horde, they prevented Kil'jaeden from coming to our world, and in the future I'm sure they, the Naru and the Light will play a vital role in the coming battles against the Legion. How the story will unfold? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. I hope you all enjoyed the story. Subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys. See ya!
So that was like a different ways of retelling the same story, basically of what happened between the Draenei, the orcs, how the Draenor has fallen, and it kind of sets the plane for the entire story. We kind of briefly went into the machinations between Kil'jaeden and the elven prince Keltas that we've met in the Warcraft 3. So yeah, any thoughts so far? Any questions? Anything? Is it easy enough to follow? Sorry, I kind of switched myself off because I was just so worried about this. But I think it's gonna be okay now. Ah! Oh my god. Fantastic. Yeah. We can listen about the story of Farseer Nabundo because honestly, I heard just a bit of his story, but I really don't know too much about him. He is the fallen Draenei that was infected with the red gas that the Orcish armies released on Shatrach. And he slowly reclaimed his mind and has a communion with the elements.
Hello everyone! A little while ago, we did the story of Tyrion Fordring. You might remember how they excommunicated him, disconnected from using the light. But not really, for as Tyrion put it, men, they could strip him of his armor and titles. They could take away his home and his wealth. But the light, it would always be within him. The human would prove to be right. But there is a case, a weapon capable of disconnecting people from the light.
Why there's no fucking car access? I don't get it. What the fuck is wrong with this stupid game? I love Cities Skylines. I love building it, but I hate how it's made. I'm on the verge of a mental breakdown again. Oh my fucking god, why? Why no... What do you mean no road reaches it? What is this if not a fucking road, bro? Ja pierdolę. And it's not even just a matter of placing a new fucking asset. Why? Oh. Oh. Okay. Sorry, like, I'm melting because it's extremely annoying. It's extremely annoying. Like, just because I spent 6 months building this town, and I know I didn't get a lot done, but I really put a lot of effort into it. Because I like it, like, I treat it like a diorama. It's like a hobby, and I look for inspiration in the real world for, like, plazas and architectural solutions and stuff like this. And then, like, all my work that I've been sitting for hours and hours and hours and even preparing the videos to showcase what I'm doing, and just to see it so rudely taken away just because somebody did a horrible job. Developing the game. Are the other buildings locked? 1 second. Alright. Let me... No.
What are we talking about today?
Light. Must remember the light.
For that story, we're going to have to go back in a time before the Dark Portal had even opened up. The Draenei, after declining Sargeras's offer of joining his burning legion, they were on the run, hiding away from his forces, from their own kind that did decide to team up with the Dark Titan. Kil'jaeden especially, he took it quite personal that Velen had declined to join them. He promised that he would hunt them down. And so, for thousands of years, the Draenei, they ran from planet to planet until they could run no more. Their ship, Oshugan, was forced to make a crash landing on the planet of Draenor. And there, they would build up a home for themselves, hoping to not be noticed. For a while, their time here, it was quite peaceful. Sure enough, the locals, like the ogres, they weren't too fond of these new settlers, but they didn't really stand a chance against the might of the Draenei. The relations with the orcs, another native race in Draenor. I mean, it was not like they, were feasting at the campsites, but there was no hostility between them, and they mostly kept to themselves, living out their own lives. That is, until Kil'jaeden found them again, and he didn't know that they were stuck on the planet. To avoid the Draenei from escaping his grasp once more, he decided to be a bit more cunning about it and make the local orcs do his dirty work. By pretending to be a benevolent ancestor, he was able to maneuver them from their traditional shamanism to becoming warlocks, embracing the Fel, magically age their children to increase their numbers, form the Horde, a unified fighting force from the different clans,
No worries,
and
Ima,
ultimately
see you.
make them drink the blood of Manoroth, shackling their souls to the Legion.
Drink, Hellscream. Claim your destiny.
That would be Gul'dan right there. One of the key figures. Did not particularly care about his people. He was more invested in getting the promised power from the Legion, and he would do anything it took, anything that Kil'jaeden asked of him, even selling out his own race. So it was that the might of the Horde took down some prime locations of the Draenei, like Karabor or the Black Temple, as you might know it better as. Their might, it was great, near unstoppable, until only Shefrev's city remained to be taken. The city, the Draenei knew, it was going to be doomed from the start, since Prophet Velen, he had foreseen it. At first, he wanted to do a full evacuation, get the people out of there, but that would only stop the Horde for a moment. Their rampage across Draenor, it would not end until they had wiped out all of the Draenei, or, at the very least, until they believed they had. Another plan was made, one where many of their civilians, they would get a chance to flee to safety, but the majority of the military, they would stay behind in the city. They would sacrifice their lives to make the Horde believe that it had destroyed them. And Velen vowed to be one of those defenders, to stand with his people and make this ultimate sacrifice. But his followers, they argued against it. In their hearts they knew that Shefrev was doomed to fall. If the race had any hope of survival, it would be under Velen's wise leadership. As much as he might want to, he had a greater path in front of him, a greater goal to fulfill, than to die there with them in this battle. While the Orcish clans were setting out from the throne of Kil'jaeden, Velen and the Exarchs, they made the preparations. The prophets led many civilians to Teldor, a remote temple built upon an island in the Zangar Sea. Meanwhile, Rangari scouts harassed the Horde lines, slowing their approach. In Shefrev itself, the Vindicators shored up the defenses. Brave Draenei that you might have seen before, Draenei like Marat, Akama, and of course, Nobundo.
Ora Teramus.
This siege of Shefrev would not just be the clash of steel, fel, and holy power. Gul'dan and the Shadow Council, they prepared something rather special for the Draenei waiting inside by combining their warlock magics with the red pox. And the red pox, that's the disease that occasionally flared up amongst the orcs, not a disease that they always had to deal with. They in turn got it as a gift from the ogres. And the ogres, they got it by studying the curse of Sepha and experimenting with ways to induce a similar affliction amongst the orcs. This curse of Sepha, its origin, it's a very ancient curse created by the wind serpent god Sepha. You might recall dealing with it during Warlords of Draenor. The curse, it caused the Arakoa affected by it to become wretched and flightless, and it also cut them off from the light of their sun goddess, a goddess called Rukmar. So that curse, in the form of red pox, mixed with a bit of warlock fell magic, it was thrown at the Draenei with siege engines. The bombs exploded against Shefrev's walls and released a foul mist that burned the Draenei's skin and choked the breath from their lungs. A thick, red fog enveloped Shefrev's battlements. As the mist wreaked havoc amongst the defenders, the orcs flooded through breaches in the city walls. Marat, Akama, Nobundo, and thousands of Shefrev's other defenders, they stood firm against the horde's onslaught. Again, they knew they were doomed, and their only wish was to take as many orcs with them as they could. They had not counted on this chemical warfare though, but they fought on all the same. The mist, it had worked its way onto the rise, where it rolled out and covered the stone like a carpet. Nobundo and his fellow Vindicators, they fought on as the mist rose to chest level, then finally to their faces, stinging their eyes and burning their lungs. Nobundo heard the death cries of several of his companions, but he had lost sight of them in the dense red fog. Mercifully, the attacks on him, they seemed to have abated. He stumbled back a step, stifling the urge to vomit. It felt as if his skull was about to burst. Then he heard a horrific battle cry from out of the mist that chilled him to the bone. A shadow approached. Nobundo struggled to see as his body wrenched in spasms. He tried desperately to hold his breath as out of the dense crimson mist stepped a tattooed, fiery-eyed terror, a massive orc covered in the distinctive blue of Draenei blood. Out of breath, twisting a wicked two-handed axe in his grip. This was Gromar's Hellscream. His raven-hued hair clung to his thick chest and shoulders, and his lower jaw had been colored as black as pitch, lending his face the countenance of a skull. Behind him, scores of orcs rushed onto the rise. Nobundo knew that the end was near.
I think I fixed
the
it.
wall shook once more. The nightmarish orc charged. Nobundo arced back. The blade carved a gash across his chest, rending his armor and numbing his left side. The Draenei answered with a swing of his hammer that crushed the fingers of the orc's right hand, rendering it and the axe he held useless. Then, to Nobundo's horror, the terrifying creature smiled.
I did it! Oh my god, I fucking did it. Never update your game. I'm sorry for melting a little bit, but it's just so frustrating when, you know, you pour hours and hours and hours and hours into a project and then, you know, you see it go so crazy in so many ways. I mean, this electricity thing is still not fixed. My only consolation is that everything we're gonna build from now on is gonna be around the city center, not in city center. At least it's finished, so I don't have to do anything in there, so it can be a jumbled electric mess. But yeah, no, it was a horrible experience having to do it. But at least it's done. Yeah. More depots. I have a shit ton of depots. I have so many depots. I don't know, these are maintenance vehicles, but these are depots. I don't know. Anyways, the buses don't have to work right now. Well, we can worry about this later because we're gonna be changing the whole public transport line anyway, so this doesn't matter. Yeah, no, like, look, at least the electricity is flowing. It's a good thing it's an island. The good thing is that it is an island. So everything here is gonna be remade anyway, so that's fine. But we can just go and do our town. Because this is not over, like, once, say, like, this church here, or There was another church here. Oh, this church that is no longer here. Once they are resubmitted as actual assets, you know what? I'm just gonna ignore those pedestrian access thingies. Once they're resubmitted as actual assets, I'm gonna have to replace them. But I just wanted to make sure that like people don't start dying, so I don't get like crazy death rates and other weird stats for my city. Because as we will be building bright water, the stats from Concordia here is going to be affecting whatever we're gonna be building over here. So I just wanted to get ahead in the way of like, if everyone's dying, if there's pollution, or if there's pathfinding issues, then it's going to influence everything that we're doing here. And that's why I was kind of panicking, because I was like, I was low-key thinking to start fresh anyways, but I feel like I've done a lot, so much progress. Like, I don't want to give up that easily. But yeah, I feel like a little bit like I'm running this project on like a stitch, you know, like a patchwork basically. Like it's like one patchwork from the previous update, then another patchwork from another update, and it's all like barely sticking together, and it's going to fall apart at any minute. And I'm just so concerned for the stability of the game as we progress further. But let's like let's keep going and see what happens. But if I'm ever starting fresh, I'm not starting on this map again. I mean, I love this map, but I have trauma now associated starting 3 times on the same map. But anyways, we can continue building here. I think honestly, I think I need a cigarette. I think I need a cigarette, so give me a moment. I'm gonna go outside to smoke, and I'm gonna continue on. I'll be right back. Hello, hello, hello. Ugh. Sorry. That was a very stressful adventure through fixing the city, but now Concordia is gonna stay there until everything else gets updated, all the mods start working, and I'm going to start building out here. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna save this because okay. Oh no. Did it save? Am I able to save this? Oh my fucking god. Will I ever finish a city? Okay. Oh my god. Well, okay. I'm so sorry. I had every intention of getting this to work. But I see that there's a lot I have to figure out still. I was excited to try to like build out a new area and whatever, but I need to go and see whether I can get the save file to work, whether I can get this whole thing to work in general. It might just be the case that we will have to say goodbye to Concordia and start fresh. Yeah, let me take it offline, you guys. Sorry for a bit of a downer. I was really looking forward to continuing on, but I just see there's a lot of things that are broken, like from the roads, and then like if I remove the roads, I have to remove all the road markings, and that's the majority of what consumed my time. Like the detailing, sure, but it's mostly the detailing around the roads that took so much time. And if we are going to start fresh, the one thing that I would do different is that, you see, like in the old city center, my main problem with it from the beginning was that I feel like I've done the streets a little bit too wide, and like the blocks are not authentically narrow with each another, which is something that a lot of European cities tend to be. They tend to have a lot more narrower streets, like more like in this part of the old town, for example. So maybe if we start fresh, I'm gonna try to do a more narrow streets. And anyways, we have proper assets out now, so you know, we can build it out better, hopefully. But yeah, I have a feeling it's Jova. We might need to start again. Hopefully we can start and actually finish a proper city, because look how little I did, and it's 6 months of progress just in here. But I really love detailing. I just don't work fast enough to to complete a map before an update comes and fucks with my game. I'll try to work on it in the background. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But for now, I'm just gonna go. Keep an eye out on updates. Anyways, thanks guys. See you on the next one. I'm not here tomorrow, by the way, because I'm going to Dublin. But